Hello and thank you for joining us at Easy Cooking. Today we're going to make a traditional Bulgarian dessert for the Christmas holiday. It's baklava. A lot of you may think baklava is something super fancy and it takes a super long time and a lot of effort, but in reality it's actually super easy. The only thing is it takes time because you have to bake it one day, let it cool, and then do the syrup the next day and pour the syrup on top, let that sit for another day, and then it's perfect to eat. We're gonna make my mom's recipe tonight, and hopefully you like it and you don't find it too hard. It's a two-step process, like I said. So we're gonna start with preparing our filo dough and walnut, I guess baklava bake, and tomorrow we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the syrup. For the baklava, yes, baby. Awesome. Thank you. For like I was saying, for the baklava. We need... Yeah. Hey, babe. Like I was saying, let's see what we need for the first part to make our baklava. And then we'll get started. Melted butter, crushed walnuts, cinnamon, sugar, and 2 pounds worth of filo dough. Yeah. Yeah, those are walnuts. Yeah. Yeah. As you can see, we have our little chef with us tonight as well. I don't know how long she's gonna make it, but she's gonna start with us and maybe she'll go to bed at some point of time. Now, quick note before we get going, for the baklava, I use thin filo dough sheets. Hey baby. I use thin filo dough sheets. They're the best for baklava. You don't want to get the thick ones. Generally speaking, I don't like to put advertising. However, I do buy the Athens brand from our local store. That seems to work great. The sheets are just thin enough to make a very good dessert. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our bowl with walnuts and we're going to pour our cinnamon on top. After we do that, we'll do a little bit of sugar. Now I know we put a sugar syrup on top. We put a little sugar in the walnut mixture as well. Because we baked the baklava without the syrup to start with, we want to add that little bit of sugar in the mixture to give it the aroma and the sweet flavor that you want to get out of dessert. Because if we bake it without the sugar, then it's going to have that salty, not necessarily salty, but it's not going to have much flavor to start with. And when you put the sugar syrup on top, it's not going to finish it very well. So we want to have that sugar to start with to get a nice finished bake feeling. I need a spoon, since I forgot one. We'll give this a stir. Make sure it's well mixed. My container for this is not very big, so I'm going to mix a little bit more to make sure it's done right. I don't want to waste any walnuts, because that's really what makes the baklava. So now that this is mixed, you okay, Natalie? What is Lilia watching? Does Natalie want to watch it with Lilia, whatever she's watching?
She's doing her baskets. She's not watching.
Oh. Now that this is mixed, we are going to put it aside. We're going to make sure our butter is well melted here. Perfect. Now we're going to get our first cake pan. This cake pan is a 13-inch by 9-inch by 2-inch. It's a perfect size for the filo dough that I buy from the local store. It fits the filo dough sheets perfectly. Because this pan is a little smaller for the amount of baklava I'm making, depending on how thick I want to make my baklava, I may split it in two sheets and make 2 separate baklavas. However, I may make just one. So because of what I'm doing and because I may be making 2 baklavas here, I'll get another container. I'm going to split my walnuts in 2 equal parts, or at least I'm going to try to. It's not going to be the end of the world if they're not quite so equal. We'll try to measure as much as we can. That seems about right. These seem to be about equal parts, so we're gonna leave this one aside for our second one, unless I just decide to do a super big one. I don't know yet, haven't decided. We're kind of improvising tonight with the size of our baklava. Before we get started, we want to make sure there's a good coating of butter in our pan. We don't want our baklava to stick to it. Oh, hey Lily. Are you done with your school? With your homework? Are you done with your homework?
It's not homework.
Oh, what was it?
Reading.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna coat this with...
Reading's fun, so it doesn't count as homework.
Yep. Nice coat of butter on the whole pan and the walls. Perfect. That looks good. I don't think we need more. Okay, so we're gonna start with that. I'm gonna pick one of my packages of filo dough. Every other package of filo dough is in the fridge. You don't want to leave all of your filo dough outside the fridge while you're working, because if it gets too warm, the individual sheets become harder to work with. So you want it in a fridge temperature. One thing that I may have forgotten, make sure your filo dough makes it out of the freezer the night before. Put it inside your fridge and let it sit overnight. Otherwise, if it's frozen right out of the freezer, you obviously won't be able to work with it. So we're gonna get started here. I'm super excited. They make baklava only once a year. It's a rich dessert, and it makes a lot, and we have a hard time eating it. Hey Lily.
Hi Daddy.
So I only make it once or twice a year, no more than that. So we're gonna grab 2 sheets. The first ones may come out a little cracked. That's not the end of the world. Don't be discouraged. Just arrange them well. Just like that.
Ooh, yummy!
Thank you, Lily. That's the best advertising anyone can ask for. We are gonna butter it up a little bit. So just butter it. You don't have to go too crazy on the butter. You don't want your baklava to be super greasy in a way. So just enough, not too bad. Then we're gonna get a little bit of the walnuts. Now you're gonna do basically the first part will be 2 of these packages of filo dough, and these are a lot of sheets. So don't go too crazy. Once you're done with the packages of filo sheets, you can just dump the rest of your walnut mixture on top, so it's not the end of the world. If you have some extra left at the end, then you can make a thicker layer of walnuts. We're gonna take 2 more sheets here. We're gonna put them on top. We're gonna butter up, and we're gonna repeat until we run out of filo dough and of walnuts. Make sure to try to use up obviously all of your filo dough. And do this, and do some walnuts. Now, some people make the baklava with only 2 or 3 layers of walnuts. So they'll do a thick layer of filo dough, a thick layer of walnut, a thick layer of filo dough, a thick layer of walnut. I prefer it this way. If you do just 2 layers of filo dough with a little bit of walnut and then keep repeating the process, it adds air between your sheets. And it makes your baklava that much airy and fluffier and lighter, and it makes it a lot more pleasant for eating. Otherwise, if you do the thick layers of sheets and thick layer of nuts, it makes it for a heavy baklava. Everything gets a lot more dense, and it's just not the same experience for me, at least. I don't like a dense baklava. I prefer mine airy and fluffy. So that's the reason we're doing this. Everyone's got a different technique. Baklava is not baklava is not a dessert that is made only in one way. You can make it in many different ways. So everyone just has their own spin to it. And hopefully you enjoy mine. And we're gonna keep doing this. So we're gonna keep doing it until we run out. I'm probably gonna stop the sound here in a minute and fast forward. So You don't have to sit and watch me do this. This is our last layer on this one. We are gonna butter up the top layer. Make sure it doesn't dry and burn. Now the top layer I'm gonna butter up a little more because we don't want it to be too dry because it's gonna burn otherwise and it's gonna get too flaky. It's a little hard because the dough, the sheets are getting warmer and they're harder to brush. Now I'm not gonna keep going. This filled up my cake pan, so I am actually gonna make 2 baklavas. If you have the same size pan and you don't feel like making 2 giant baklavas, if you don't have a big party, feel free to have the recipe. You don't have to make the full recipe. I'm gonna be sharing our baklava with quite a few people, so I'm making the full recipe. But again, every recipe can be halved or doubled, whatever your desire is. Now, this is good. My oven just warmed up, but before we bake it, this one or another one. Before we bake it, we are going to cut it up. Now, you can cut it up in squares or you can cut it up diagonal. Diagonal looks a little better, to be quite frank with you. Just make sure to be careful not to cut your pan while you're cutting it, or not to scratch your pan if it's non-stick pan. And just be careful with your sheets, of course. I'll cut it this way as well. Trying to keep the sheets intact, which is a little hard at this point, but it's doable. Alright, this became a little bit of a mess, but don't you worry about it, it's going to taste the same. And we're going to put it in the oven. We'll start with 1.5 hours, so 1.5 hours. And then we're going to increase our temperature and add some more time. Okay, I'm going to start. Our timer just went off on 1.5 hours. This is what our baklavas look like so far. At this point of time, we are going to raise the temperature to 275. And we're going to add another 20 minutes on the timer. All set. We're going to do that one more time after that at 300 degrees. We're going to increase the temperature one more time to 300 degrees. And we're going to add another 20 minutes to the timer. Our timer just went out, so we're just about done. We'll take our baklavas out of the oven. Let's see what we have. Oh my goodness, it smells heavenly in here. This is our baklava number 1. And our baklava number 2. I cut the second baklava in squares. I figured make them a little different. They look good, they smell amazing. So we'll cover them up and we'll let them sit until tomorrow night. And after work, I will make the syrup and I'll pour it over them. So I'll see you tomorrow. We are on day 2 of our preparation process. Here's our 2 baklavas. They look and smell amazing. And we are about to prepare the syrup and pour it on top of them. So I'm going to put these 2 away for now. I do not need the baklava until the very end. For now, I'm going to get a regular size pot. And we're going to prepare the syrup. A lot of people think the syrup is made with honey. Some people probably do make it with honey, but the traditional standard baklava is made with just sugar, water, and a couple of other things. So let's see what we need, and then we'll get going. Sugar, water, vanilla, and lemon juice. All right, let's get that syrup ready so we can finish up our baklava and we can try it tomorrow. First, we're going to start with the water. We're going to put our water in the pot. Then we're going to get our sugar. We're going to mix all that together. I'm going to get myself a spoon. We're going to give it a little stir before we put it on the stove top, just to make sure all the sugars absorb the water for now. This is enough, we don't need much, and we're going to move to the stove top. We're going to start on high heat for the time being until it starts boiling. So I have mine on high heat right now. I'm going to let it boil. As soon as it starts boiling, we'll put the timer on 30 minutes. We'll cook it on medium heat. You don't want to cook it on too strong of heat. It doesn't really make a difference. So you can turn the heat down to medium. And we will not put the vanilla and the lemon juice until the very end. So once your syrup is all cooked up, then you put your lemon juice, the vanilla, mix it all up, and then we'll pour it on the baklava. I'll see you in a few. Our timer just went off. It's been exactly 30 minutes. At this point, we're going to turn the heat off. We're going to add our vanilla. We're going to add our lemon juice. We're going to give it a stir. Make sure to stir well. The lemon juice basically prevents it from sugarizing once you put it on the baklava and it cools down. The vanilla is just for flavor. So this is what your juice will look like when it's all ready, or syrup should I say, it's not juice, it's sugar syrup. We're done with that, and we're gonna pour it over our baklavas now. Let's finish up what we started yesterday. I'm gonna go slow, I don't want to splash. I'm gonna try to divide it about, I don't know, half and half as much as possible. I'm not gonna measure, I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. Pour half the juice in this one, I may go back and forth a few times, pour the other half here. You definitely want to make sure there's plenty of juice. That's enough. Now there's a little bit of juice left. I am not going to put all of it in. I'm going to pour a little more here. And this one. And I think we're looking good. That should be definitely plenty of juice. I have, like, as you can see, I have a little bit of juice left. Put a little more here. I have a little bit of juice left. I'm not going to use it all up. I kind of gauge it by looking at the baklava. As long as we have most of it pretty much in the juice, we're good. So we're in a good shape. At this point, we're just going to cover our baklavas and let them sit overnight. You don't have to put the baklava inside a fridge because there's nothing perishable really. So you can feel free to leave it on the counter. If you put it in the fridge, the sugar syrup will get too thick and you're not going to enjoy it. I would put it in the fridge only after it's been on the counter for a few days. Don't do it right away. You want to enjoy your baklava a little more. We're going to cover this one too. And that's it. Now it's just a waiting game. You want to give it at least 12 hours before you indulge in it. You want it to sit and soak the juices very well, soak the aroma of the vanilla, the sugar syrup. Now my sugar syrup is not going to be the thickest. I don't like it when it's thick. I like when I get my piece of baklava out. Let the syrup drip out a little bit, so I'm not getting the heavy sugar. With each piece, I don't want it to be drenched in sugar. I want it to drip out a little, so I can enjoy a couple of extra pieces. So that's it. I'll see you tomorrow again. It's finally day 3 of our whole baklava making process. It's been sitting for a day and it's time for us to give it a try. I got a piece from each one of my 2 trays. One was a metal tray, one was a glass tray. There's always a difference depending on what kind of tray you're using. I treat baklava like a finger food, so we'll give it a try from each tray, see how it turned out. The flavor is amazing, and it's not too heavy. I mean, the baklava soaked all the juices up, which is what you want, but you can see how we have the walnuts between all the sheets of filo dough, and you don't have that big clump of walnut layer and clumps of filo dough sheets. So the baklava from the metal pan turned out great. My bottom did bake a little too much. It got a little darker than I prefer it. I don't like a dark bottom on the baklava, so if you can put your baklava as high as possible in your oven, that way your top cooks a little more evenly with your bottom. My bottom of the baklava got a little darker than the top. I had it sitting in the middle rack. So put your baklava as high as you can inside your oven when you're cooking it. That way it cooks a little better overall. It's still pretty good. It's really amazing. I mean, it's fantastic. I personally just don't prefer the darker bottom. Now let me see how the one in the glass dish turned out. It's so good. It's really good. Not too much syrup. It's soaked really well. It's just perfect. You can see how there's walnuts between all the sheets of filo, and it's just phenomenal. Anyway, it's good. So I'll finish this. I'll probably have some more. You guys enjoy your New Year's. Happy holidays. And we'll see you in 2021.